Good morning, everyone. Today is September the 9th, 2021, and this is the StockCast show. And I am your host, James Mason, and Todd Derby will not be with me today. So the show will actually probably be pretty good. So give me a number one or number two in the comment section if you feel like that's going to be the case. I should see a bunch of number ones or twos. And let's go ahead and get this show started. So currently right now, the Dow futures are borderline flat. They're negative 18 points. S&P 500 is negative 2.5 points. And trying to find direction at this point is going to be tough. Whenever the futures are flat like this, pre-market, you can pretty much go ahead and assume that the day is going to be choppy. So just keep that in mind. I mean, for me, this ain't worth day trading through whatsoever. So let me take a quick look through the comments, see what everybody is saying. Push your tickers. Let's see some tickers. Come on, everyone. Let's see. John, no Todd, bye. Block. Let's see. All right. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Yes, Peter. Team James. Team James. All right. So Dan had a question. Dan was asking, ticker SNGT has, basically they had a FDA designation, and I actually had the news up here not long ago, but let's just pull it up on the chart really quick. We can take a quick peek at it. We'll talk about GSAT in a second. So ticker SNGX. So they have 40 million shares outstanding. The float is almost 40 million as well. But really, guys, what a lot of people don't understand about the float is the float actually only updates about like once a year. So you really can't go off the float for accuracy. So just keep that in mind, especially when everybody talks about like short interest in the float. That's why it's always best to go off of outstanding shares. Hence why StockCast is going to have the short squeeze scanner that is based off of outstanding shares. So for SNGX, there's pretty much nothing for short interest. And again, shares outstanding sits right at 40 million. Looking at this daily chart right here, we can see it's moved up just a little bit. Now, we have to think, if that news really was important, we would not be up just 14 cents pre-market. With 40 million shares only being outstanding, that's very low. If this thing was important, this thing would have already just like spiked up and would have ran crazy. So with that news, honestly, the market's not seen as being important or relevant, or, not that it's not important, but like it's not important enough for the market to really throw their money behind it and make it run. So it's just one of those tickers that it'd be worth watching in the future. Now, with that designation, it would be worth looking into, basically, see, kind of get a guesstimation, like the time frame on when they'll actually release some results on that. That's when you want to get into it, or right before it. So SNGX, we're going to have to put this one on the back burner until we can kind of figure out a timeline on that catalyst. So let's go ahead and talk about ticker GSAP. All right, so we'll put it on the 5-minute chart to start with. All right, so we can see this push up yesterday and then the after hours push. And I mean, it was rocking out pretty good. Now, pre-market, we're coming up to, looks like we're going to try to test those after hour highs, but let's take a look at their share structure. Ticker GSAT. Now, for short interest, they do have 62.23 million shares being short. But while that might sound like a lot, look at the big picture here. So 62 million shares short, but they have almost 1.8 billion shares outstanding. So that short interest is honestly almost irrelevant. Now, I know people are going to still try to talk about, some squeeze or whatever BS, but I mean, come on, like when you have that many shares, and again, I mean, if everybody jumped on board here, like we saw with GameStop, they could make it go up, but why? Like, I mean, really, that would just be gambling. Just the same way the whole GameStop short squeeze was gambling. But I mean, not knocking them, they made it work. But they also haven't been able to really replicate that since. But yeah, when the outstanding shares are 1.8 billion, man, it takes so much money, so many people to actually move this thing. It just becomes a challenge. Now, I understand the whole hype. Everybody's trying to hype it up, talk about, hold on, Dan, let me get your comment off of here. So I understand the whole hype that everybody's trying to talk about with the iPhone 13 coming out with satellite capabilities. Apple already said that when they release this phone, it's not immediately going to come out with those capabilities. Now, we can assume that in the future, probably an update, they will have those capabilities, but why is everybody thinking that they're going to use Global Star? Apple hasn't said anything about it. There's no proof that they're going to use Global Star. So this kind of goes back to the whole phrase, the whole saying of buy the rumor, sell the news. And I actually mentioned to a member yesterday that sometimes you actually have to buy the rumor and sell the rumor. Because at times when they release the news, they might release it so early in the pre-market to where you might not actually be within your trading hours to get out. And the market makers are slamming that thing because of the news that was released. Let's just say Apple came out and said, hey, we ain't using Global Star. What do you think is going to happen to Global Star? This thing is going to crash for sure, if Apple said that. So just keep that in mind, guys. Also, who's to say that Apple ain't going to have their own technology for satellites? They have everything else. Why wouldn't they have access to their own satellite equipment or technology? Just keep that in mind. So don't get too caught up on internet hype behind tickers like this. I'm sure people probably screaming out stuff that this is going to the moon, like when Apple puts it in their phones or whatever they're trying to say. At the end of the day, it's about making money. And if you're already sitting in profits, it's okay to take profits. I mean, think about it. Like, I don't know what everyone's average is in this, and I'm not even in this trade. I never even took this trade. It was never an alert. But, let's say if people jumped in, I don't know, somewhere right in here in this mid $2 range. Well, you currently do have a little bit of profit. So I would for sure put a stop loss in. But also, too, with that being said, it's okay to take your profits. Because the last thing you want to do is to buy this at the top, Apple come out and say that they're not using this company, and then next thing you know, you wake up the next morning and this damn thing goes from $2.77 to 77 cents. I mean, we've seen it happen, or you've at least heard of it happen. So just be safe, guys. Again, there's nothing wrong with taking profits. That's kind of the whole point of why we're here, is to take profits. I mean, you could use a strategy like taking 80% of your profits and just letting the other 20% ride. And if it would do something crazy and just like skyrocket, well, that 20% is going to still make you killer money. And a lot of people would be like, yeah, but if I had all my money in there, I'd have made this much money. Yeah, could have, would have, should have. But let's be real. How many times have you left all your money in the trade thinking that this is going to go to the moon, and it did everything else but go to the moon? So just be safe, guys. All right, let's see what else we got in the comment section. Curtis James, thank you for the tips, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you. So let's see what else we got. Daniel Fisher. Let's take a look at PMCB. See what we have going on in the news here. Hold on, let me back out to the daily chart. Okay, so they just had that split. Man, they just had a split and then a tank like that. Golly. All right. So for what I'm seeing for shares outstanding, and again, they just had a split, so I'm not 100% sure if the share structure has been updated. But what I'm seeing is almost 2.4 billion shares outstanding. I have a hard time believing that share structure has been updated. That just seems too high for them just having a, split. Let's see. Good Lord. One for 1,500. Yeah. So that share structure cannot be accurate. and I really don't know what the share structure is now. So all right. So being that I don't have accurate information on the share structure, it makes this a little bit more challenging. Right now, I'm gonna have to just say that this is one that we need to see it play out a little bit more. I mean, that's just a gnarly split right there, reverse split, and or whatever split. But I mean, look at this. Like, what happened here? I mean, and I don't know nothing about this ticker. I mean, maybe it was earnings that pulled it down, but I mean, we still had this downtrend going on right here, and then obviously gap down after the earnings, and now we're just trending sideways. So what tends to happen when we have a gap down like this and it trends sideways like this? It'll start doing these little fake outs. Well, there's actually one right here, but it'll start doing these little fake outs where it'll come up here and test, these resistances like right in this range. It usually takes about 2 to 3 of those little fake outs before it actually becomes serious, and we'll start moving up some. Now, long term, it's hard to say. I mean, we've really just been downtrending, but at the same time, this is a bio stock, and most bio stocks are just research and development companies, and they don't make money. That's usually not what they do. They're not in the business of making revenue. They're in the business of research and development. So it's really hard for me to say 100% like what's going on here, because I don't understand their share structure for one. I don't understand any catalysts, what they have or what they don't have. But if I was going to look at this on the chart to look for an entry, honestly, I'd have to. Man, I really don't see a good entry. I'm just going to be real. Personally, I wouldn't trade this. I just don't see a good entry whatsoever. Any entries, like any breakout points where the momentum would shift, like that PPS value is just like so high. And it will be a while before we get up to say really right in here is where I would actually look for an entry. We're talking 1388. It's currently $3.80 pre-market. It's a 10-point difference. But really, we don't have a change in momentum until we break above that 1388. I mean, if you look at these candles and that 9 EMA line, even if this thing starts to turn right here and go up, I mean, we're still all in that bearish sell-off range. To change that momentum, we have to break above 1388, and you can see what happens once we start breaking above 1388. That's when we actually start coming into the ranges of getting that bullish momentum. So, Daniel, hopefully you're not in this one. Hopefully you didn't get caught up in whatever funky business was going on here for it to gap down like that. But if you were looking to try to enter this thing is going to be challenging. I mean, yeah, you could obviously play in between the lines, but for me, with how I trade, I just need to see where it actually shifts with that momentum before making an entry. I'm not too big on playing in between the lines, to be honest. All right, let's take a look at one more. Let's see what we got. All right, ticker. Let's see, Curtis. How about SAM call options on the dump? All right, so ticker SAM. This is Boston Beer Company. They just got hammered. Shares outstanding, 10.1 million shares. Almost 850,000 shares being short, so roughly 9% outstanding, somewhere in there. So what we got going on in the news. Okay, so I saw something briefly come through the headlines yesterday about them. I didn't really read it, but what it's saying is basically Boston Beer pulls guidance as hard seltzer demands fizzle. So their product is not looking too good right now. But I mean, good Lord, like this thing has been beaten down and then beaten down again, like with that gap down. It's to the point now where like, let's see, let's just start with finding the support. I mean, like we're literally like right in the range of support. All right. So, Curtis, to kind of answer your question about buying call options on that drop, I can definitely see what you're seeing about it, taking a little bullish bounce here. I mean, this thing is just so beaten down. It's clearly a large cap. I mean, their market cap alone is $6.8 billion. So we clearly have a large cap here. And with a beat down like this and then a gap down on top of it, and then more beating down, I would say this thing is probably to the point where it's going to bounce, but we are still downtrending. I mean, look at that non-EMA. It's literally pointing straight in the ground. What we do need to see is this thing to kind of flatten out a little bit more. But as we flatten out a little bit more, we should start seeing these spikes. And with how you usually trade, Curtis, from what I understand, that's pretty much how you make a lot of your money, is catching these spikes. And I would say that we would see them. I have no clue how much those call options cost, but I can definitely see it bouncing somewhere right here and at least getting some of them spikes. If it would run up, like let's just say, soon it would run up to like 651. That's going to be a strong resistance right at 651, running there. If it gets up to that point, I would kind of expect it to, I mean, I don't know where it would top out at, but I kind of expect it to, I was going to be corny and say fizzle out, because literally I just read the word fizzle from their article, but you know what, we'll just use it. I could see it fizzling out here and then, just going flat and then going back down. So if that is what you do, make sure you just buy some time on those contracts. Yeah, that would really be what saves you here. So scale in, buy time, and I think you'll be all right. So let's see. We have 4 minutes until the bell. Let's see. Thoughts on ticker NAK for a swing trade? Well, let me see how many shares they have first. 528 million shares outstanding. I mean, with this PPS value right here at 46 cents, I wouldn't go in heavy, but potentially they might have some potential. Like, what worries me is with them being, hold on a second. Okay. With them being a metals and mining company, there's just not really too many catalysts in that industry for them. So hold on seconds. Me personally, I mean, if I was going to play this, which I don't have any intentions of it, I'd wait to see what it would do. I'd wait to see if it comes down here, touch this 9 EMA on the daily chart, take a smaller position. Maybe it will hook, bounce, and then come back up here. At some point, and I don't know anything about this company, at some point, they're going to risk getting delisted. I mean, they've been, they've been under $1. Man, their 180 days is probably near expiration. So if they're under $1 for 30 days, they'll get a notice of delisting from the New York Stock Exchange, since that's the exchange they're on. And then they have 180 days to unscrew themselves. But actually, you know what? To answer you now that I'm thinking about this more, I personally wouldn't take a swing trade in it. They're just way too close to getting delisted from being under $1 for so long that it wouldn't be worth the risk. They're probably going to do a reverse split here. That's going to be their only saving grace. So just be careful there. But all right, guys, so we're running out of time. Got about a minute and 50 seconds left until the bell starts or the market starts. And yeah, so just remember, guys, trade safe, trade smart. The futures are almost still flat. I'm going to honestly be extremely bearish on the market for probably next 2 months, to be honest with y'all. But yeah, trade safe, trade smart, and use them stop losses. So I appreciate y'all tuning in today. The show was definitely a lot better with Team James. Hands down. Like, I vote for myself. Yeah, and hit that like button. So thank you guys for tuning in today, and I will catch y'all in the next one.